Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry for my ankle, guys. I was having a little trouble on my computer, but hopefully you guys can all understand. This year's been crazy, or this past year has been crazy. Yeah, so the App Accelerator was a program that was kind of birthed out of the past decade of me building apps. As I was building apps and kind of getting started and growing traction with my apps, I started getting emails and DMs and messages from people all over the world who said, "Hey, Amanda, I have an app idea, but I have no idea where to start." And it kind of dawned on me that the next big app idea could be in the mind of someone who just doesn't have the resources or the access or the education to build that product. And so I wanted to create a framework for everyone to streamline that process and help people get from A to app. And so I built out a program called the App Accelerator that works with you and is an online community that will help you build your first product, no matter what your experience is, no matter if you don't have a coding background or any technical skills.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for, kind of letting us know and talking to us a little bit about that. Can you talk to us maybe about the moment that you knew you wanted to start your first app?
Yeah, so I came out of undergrad in the height of the last recession. And so essentially what happened is I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, maybe not necessarily full-time. There was a lot of other things that I wanted to do as well. But I had an interest in entrepreneurship. I always had a knack for creation and for just creative problem solving. But coming out of school in the height of the recession, there weren't a lot of job opportunities. And there's certainly, even if there was an opportunity, you were likely underpaid. There just wasn't a lot of disposable income going around for most people. And so I started thinking and starting to get creative about how I could build a business to still be an entrepreneur. And at the time, iPhones were kind of relatively new. The App Store was starting to boom. And I started to think, apps could be a low cost way of me making a business available and accessible to everyone in the world without having to have a brick and mortar location. And so the light bulb kind of went on and I was like, okay, well, now I have to figure out how to actually build an app.
I absolutely love that. And you're right. That's a really great solution to the problems of the times. I mean, I feel like a lot of people around our age remember what it was like to graduate into a terrible economy and be like, all right, well, I mean, I have an art history degree that I've literally never used because I thought, oh, this will be great. And then I ended up having to learn six different industries on the way. So that's a really great way to, kind of take a situation and make the most of it. Can you talk us through the creation of your app, Happy, Happii?
Yeah, so Happy is actually like kind of an overarching company. It's an umbrella company in which I kind of house all of my apps underneath. The first app that we built within Happy was Alchemy. And Alchemy was a cocktail discovery app. I had an interest in kind of the craft cocktail market and seeing what, cultural drinking experiences look like all over the world. I'm a pretty avid traveler. And so at the time, I thought it would be great to create an app that allowed people to kind of travel to get drinking experiences. So, maybe you're having a craft beer flight in Germany, maybe you are having pisco in Peru. And so I wanted an app that enabled people to find great locations to make memories over drinks, and then also give them access to recipes at home. A really cool element of it was the social component where we would have, bartenders and drink curators from all over the world who would come on and make their own drinks and share that with our community. So people, I've literally met some of my users who were in Istanbul who were making drinks and they wanted to share them with me in the United States.
That is so cool. It's definitely part of my bio too. I was a bartender for 4 years and I was a waitress for about 5. So I love that idea. That's so amazing. And I love the, kind of the integration of people that can travel, but also people that can't, but want to learn more about, kind of the culture or some of the things that people do around in other parts of the world. That's so great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the App Accelerator?
Yeah, for sure. So The App Accelerator is a 13-week program. It walks you through all of the elements and everything I wish I would have known as a first-time founder, right? Building an app, especially if you don't have a technical background, can be a very scary process. And it can be very intimidating. You hear all these horror stories about people getting taken advantage of. They get their ideas stolen. They build a product, they lose a bunch of money. They're kind of navigating the process aimlessly. And so the App Accelerator creates a roadmap for you. So we walk you through the ideation process, how to determine if you have a good idea, to carve out the problem that you're trying to solve. We help you identify your target customers. We help you design the app and walk you through the design process. Then we actually teach you how to source and find a developer. We also walk you through the different types of apps that are available, because there are dozens of different ways that you can build an app. There's no one size fits all approach to building apps. I've built apps for as little as $500, and I've also spent thousands of dollars on building apps, right? But we want people to know they can get started today, and that there are means to getting started and pathways to getting started, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what your budget is, no matter what your idea is, right? And we help people walk through those steps and kind of ideate through that process. So we introduce you to your development options, introduce you to developers. We actually have a developer directory that supports the program, where we have dozens of developers all over the world based on the type of app that you would like to build. So if you feel comfortable with our developers, we'll welcome you to use them. But we also teach you how to meet other developers all over the world and how to meet prospective founders. After we help you with the development process, we actually teach you how to upload your app to the store, and then how to market, manage, and maintain your app thereafter, because apps are a business, they are an investment. And so we want you to be able to maintain that investment after you actually build it. So we want you to have a sustainable business. And so that's what the program is focused on. We complement this with a resource repository where we have all types of trainings and tutorials. We have lots of tech trainings where, if I recommend a product in the program, I walk you through how to use it. You don't have to figure that out on your own. Again, we have the developer directory. We have a glossary of terminology. So if I use a term you don't understand, you can look in the glossary and it's right there. You don't have to browse across the internet. And we also have group coaching and one-on-one coaching. So if you are interested in working with us on a one-on-one level, and you just kind of want some personal attention and a personalized framework, or if you like to work with our other entrepreneurs and our other app entrepreneurs who are, working together to kind of build their apps and kind of ping ideas off of each other and get great feedback, it's a great opportunity to kind of learn at a group scale. So that's a synopsis of the program. I hope that kind of gave you an overview of what that looks like and what that feels like.
That is amazing. Like, I love the idea of kind of looking at it on like a global or holistic scale. And the idea of kind of introducing people to other people in the community, or ways that they can kind of keep that momentum going. That's amazing. I love that idea.
Thank you.
We've got some questions coming in from the chat. So I do just want to remind everybody, if you have questions for Amanda that you would like to ask, please feel free to let us know. Put them into that chat that you see on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will be trying to pull from there and hopefully get to as many questions as possible. So please feel free to ask. One of the questions we have in the chat was actually one of mine. Judy had asked, do you help people come up with their app ideas? So when you're talking about the App Accelerator, obviously you can help people, once they've got that idea that they want to develop, but do you also help people with their ideas, or trying to figure out, if they want to get into app building, but maybe don't have that one great idea that they want to start with?
Yeah, so sometimes we get people in the program who have a couple of different ideas and they're toying around with which idea to start with. And so we have a number of activities and a line of programming that is focused exclusively on ideation. So helping you think through that idea, or all of your ideas, to figure out which one is the best one for you to start with, and how to narrow it down so that you're actually solving a problem for money, right? We want you to solve a problem that is so pressing that people will pay you to solve it. So we help you through a series of activities and kind of workshops to help you think through that. So, some of my entrepreneurs I work with on a one-on-one basis. I just had an entrepreneur who's kind of working in the legal space. And so she's creating some apps for that and helping her better streamline her idea so that it's more niche specific and it gets down to the target audience that she really wants to target, and we believe will actually pay her services.
That is so great. And I love the dual focus, right? On like, yes, you want to help somebody develop and get their idea out there, but like, let's make it pay. Let's make sure that you are, the person that's putting in all the work gets compensated, that you can turn this into something that is not only beneficial to the community or the people you're trying to serve, but also to the creator, right? It's so hugely important. We've got some more questions coming in here. Kimberly had asked, after your app reaches the market, do you receive continued assistance from your program?
Yes. So we have a continuation program. So if people want to continue on with the program, they can, pay a small monthly fee, or they can continue on with the program. The program, you have access to the program for about 6 months. And some people decide that they want to complete all of the programming first. And then they start building their app after. And then some people actually start building the app during the process. So it's really up to you, but you have access to the program for 6 months. And then thereafter, if you want to continue on with us, and like all of my founders who I work with, they're kind of my babies. So you can really reach out to me at any time if you've at one point been in the program. So I have a kind of a bleeding heart for my entrepreneurs in that way. But we do have a continuation program. So we do continue to work with you. And then our developers that we pair you with, if you decide to work with any of our developers, they offer ongoing services too. So let's say you're a non-technical founder and you haven't found a technical co-founder yet. You may want to work with a development agency that will continue to maintain and offer, development and technical services to your app in the meantime before you find the right partner for you.
Yeah, so on that same idea, we did have a really interesting question come in from the chat. Kristen had asked, do you always need a developer? They say, I thought there were some tools for non-techies to create apps.
Absolutely. Like you definitely don't need a developer. But I think it really depends on, and this is just, my personal opinion, it really depends on the type of app that you're trying to build, right? There are a lot of no-code tools that are emerging, and they're getting a lot more sophisticated. You can build some amazing things, some great replicas of apps you already see on the market right now. But generally, most of the no-code apps are meant for like content heavy apps. So let's say you have a blog and you're interested in converting it into an app. A no-code app might be a great solution for you. Most of these platforms offer 3 tiers of service. So they might offer a do-it-yourself level, which is going to be their most basic level, and you pay a monthly fee for that. And then the next level might be, you pay a flat fee and we may do it for you. And then they have the agency side of things in-house. So if you're looking for something custom, where they're going to build out custom modules for you, that's the same price as probably a developer outside of a do-it-yourself program. One thing I want you guys to be mindful of, though, when you do use no-code solutions, is that you're building on someone else's platform. That's a lot different than building what we like to call a native app, which is an app that's meant for exclusively for, iOS or meant for Android. Now, these no-code apps, they can be used on iPhone and Android, but you are hosting that on someone else's platform. Just think of it kind of similarly to you setting up an Instagram page. It's your Instagram page, but it's ultimately on Instagram's platform. So if they ever decide to take down your page or whatnot, now this won't happen on the no-code.
So you'd be then, right. Yeah, you'd be like, right. Subject to their, their privacy rules,
yeah,
or their content rules. Yeah.
Right. So think of it as, instead of, you're essentially leasing or licensing an app, right? You're licensing their platform and you're just hosting your content on it. So you have to, if you really care about ownership of your platform and having control of that content, that's just something you have to think about. And there's often a lot of recurring fees with using these no-code platforms. So those are just things to think about. But if you're just starting off, or you're just trying to figure out, hey, I have an app idea, I kind of just want to get my feet wet. I don't know if my idea will really work yet. I want to try it out for a couple of months to see if people respond to it. I think no-code apps are a great option for you to just got to get your feet wet and pay a monthly fee and license something until you ultimately decide you want to build your own app and you want to host it outside of a no-code platform.
For those of us old enough to remember, it kind of sounds, at least to me, like the idea of like, well, yeah, I have a MySpace page versus the people that like learned to code so they could customize their MySpace page and do like, all the funky lettering and all the kind of cool stuff that, for the dinosaurs in the room, MySpace was very cool back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, you guys would have been in my top 6, or what was it, top 6, top 12? I don't know.
Top 8?
Yeah, top 8.
Yeah.
Top 8.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah.
I feel like these references are horrible, but like that's what it reminds me of. So if we're starting from the ground up, right? Leonora in the chat had asked, what is the best way to protect, like, license or patent their idea? So let's talk about that a little bit, like what it looks like if you have this idea and you want to know like what the first step is. How do you protect it?
Yeah, so I mean, what I will say is there's no real surefire way to protect an app. And I know people get really intimidated by that and they get scared. But I mean, one thing I'll tell you guys is that there's really no new idea under the sun. If you have an idea right now, someone else in the world likely has it, but that's okay. Like, that doesn't mean that person can execute like you do, right? And you might be the right person to bring it to market. So I don't want you guys to get intimidated by that. As far as your intellectual property is concerned and protecting your idea, you should be thinking about the assets around it, like your branding, your logos and things like that, getting those trademarks. You trademarked, or your name, you might want to get that trademark. You want to make sure you register your domain, you get your handles and things like that. But as far as patenting the app, you can't really patent an app. What you can do is patent algorithms. So if something about your app is proprietary, or you build out something that no one has ever seen before, you can patent that, but you can't necessarily patent the app. So that sometimes you see apps that are very similar popping up. It's because you can't necessarily protect the app. But if you have something that is proprietary in that app, you can protect that with a patent.
Awesome. Think down. I feel like this is an area that could be easily very confusing, especially for people that have never maybe navigated this area before. So for somebody that's getting started, let's talk a little bit about these like misconceptions that people have. So what are some of the most common misconceptions or the most frequent mistake that people make when they are conceiving their first app?
I think a lot of people go into it thinking that one, that they have to have a super original idea. You don't have to. You could be building a replica of something else, right? But again, you may do it differently than everyone else, and maybe this is why people come to you versus other apps. I think the second thing people think is that you have to be committed to this idea forever, right? And apps evolve. Like, what the Uber that we know today is not the Uber that was 10 years ago. And so you have to be open to letting your idea evolve. And a lot of times your customers will tell you with their actions and with their buying patterns that they want something different than what you're offering right now. And you have to be open and willing to kind of accept that, and to dive into that if you want your app to grow and to ultimately be successful. I think another big mistake that people make is that they partner or they find a developer and they don't use a developer agreement or protections. So you want people to sign NDAs. You want people to sign a developer agreement that says that it's your intellectual property and that this person is doing this for hire. And then when they go into that process, they don't really educate themselves on what working with a developer should look like. So they don't always know which assets they need. They don't know what the developer is asking them for. They haven't familiarized themselves with the terminology. So it just ends up going, back and forth quite a bit. You end up going back and forth quite a bit. And so I think that is a huge issue. Also, I think people don't always know how much they should be paying and what market rates are. So looking into that, and also everything can be paid on a payment plan. You should never be paying someone a lump sum for your app. Even if you're doing no code apps, you're paying on a monthly basis. You're not paying all of the money at once, right? So you should be paying for your product by milestone. So as developers complete a milestone and they show you what they've built. They need to prove to you that that product works, and you need to test it out. And then from there, make another payment. And that's just how it works. So I think those are some of the biggest mistakes that people make. But yeah, a lot of this can be curbed with just a little bit of education and insights into what this process looks like.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because I mean, it's not, granted, it's not an area that I've ever ventured into, but I had no idea that there would be, you know, like industry conventions apart from, you know, that you would need to know about, like paying someone in bulk for what they're, you know, say they can do versus, you know, kind of payment on delivery idea. I love that. Thank you so much. And actually, thank you for making that distinction when you started talking about like where your app can go, because I feel like there's so much of this focus on like people want to make the next app that like blows up, right? They want to make the next Instagram, the next Tinder, the next whatever. And it's one of those things to remember, like you said, growth is great, but you might need to change first. It might not be the exact, you know, it might not look exactly like you thought it was going to look. You know, be open to listening to your users and all that kind of thing to like really know if you are meeting a true need that's out there, or if there's a better way you could be approaching this.
Yeah, I think it makes me think of another problem, a recurring problem that I see. A lot of entrepreneurs they have this big dream, they have this unicorn dream of what they want in their app, and they want all of the bells and whistles from day one. And, you know, though all of those features, they add up, right? They're going to cost, like each feature is going to, you know, have to be built out individually. And a lot of times people put all of those things into the app, and then it's not even what the user wanted, right? The user may just use one feature and they overwhelmingly are gravitating to that feature, and the rest of them just are worthless, right? Like they're not even of use. But now you've spent thousands of dollars on building out all of these things that you didn't need, right? And so this is why
like very expensive window dressing, basically.
Right. So this is why we encourage entrepreneurs to start small, and we work with them in a very lean way so that they can build what we call the MVP, or a minimal viable product, and kind of get the first iteration of that app out, test it, and start getting feedback from their customers on what they should be doing next. So we know, okay, now we know that our customers like this feature, but they want it a little differently, and they would really like for us to have this feature as well. So we can start gradually adding those things in over time, but you don't have to give them it all today, right? Save your money, save your time, and start small.
Well, and I would also imagine starting with, you know, being able to kind of distill down to like what are the key features of your app is probably a very important step for, you know, kind of that idea conception and planning long term, right? It seems it seems a lot like, you know, yes, think of all the bells and whistles you want to have eventually, but maybe make it part of a roadmap to get to your end product, as opposed to thinking of it in terms of no app and then app complete how you want it, right?
Absolutely. Megan, you're like one step closer to building an app.
Oh, that's amazing. I have no idea what my app would do apart from let you know where there's dogs in your area that you can go pet them, which I'm pretty sure somebody's already thought of that. No, I love that, because it really echoes something that we talk about on our chats a lot about career building, right? About how you might have an idea that you want to be the CEO of whatever, but you don't assume that there's only A and B, right? It's you're on like step number one of this giant journey that's going to take you to wherever you want to go. And maybe it's 5 steps and maybe it's 40 steps, but I love that idea of kind of planning those steps out, and maybe you can keep jumping ahead, but if not, you have a plan in place of what you think is going to work. I love that.
Absolutely. You got it.
Thank you. All right. So let's talk about, like, as you keep going down that path, what are some ways to handle criticism from potential investors or friends and family members? Because like you said, these might be the first people that use your app, and it's not all, criticism doesn't just have to be constructive, it can just be criticism. So how do you kind of handle that, both when it's helpful and maybe when it's not?
I think, you know, look at criticism as a learning opportunity, right? You know, I actually just had a conversation about failure. And failure is really an opportunity for growth. It's a learning experience versus, you know, you just not succeeding at something. And I think we all, especially as aspiring entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs, we have to train our minds to look as failure as just an experience, right? And so you're going to get criticism from people. Not everyone's going to get your vision, but that doesn't necessarily, I mean, they may not necessarily be your people, right? And that's okay. Like everyone has a tribe, everyone has supporters, and sometimes the criticism is valid, right? And so we kind of have to humble ourselves and kind of take that in and say, you know, as much as I don't like to hear that, do they have a point? Is the data, supporting the feedback that I'm getting right now? Are people not using this because of blank? Right. So I think taking that with a grain of salt and also not letting it go to heart. Right. I think one of the hardest things to do as an entrepreneur, because, this is your baby and you're passionate about it, and no one wants to hear that their baby is ugly or that they're less than perfect. Right. But you have to understand that, it's for your betterment. All feedback is relevant, and, whether you like to hear it or not, take it in, distill over it, and think about, is this applicable? Can I do this? But also, trust yourself too, right? You built this product and you were the right person to build it for a reason. And sometimes you have to trust your gut too. I mean, I really would advise, people to kind of get, not necessarily an advisory board, but just people around them of sound counsel and people who are kind of subject matter experts in the field to ping that feedback off of. And oftentimes, investors, they don't want to see you fail, or stakeholders don't want to see you fail. They are often giving that advice to you from a great place because they really earnestly want to see you be successful, and that may just require some adjustments, some pivots, some change.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so sorry we've run out of time for today, but I really hope we can have you back to have a longer chat, because we didn't even get to some of the great questions that were pre-submitted, as well as questions people asked in the chat. So thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we jump, can you maybe talk to us a little bit about where people can find you, or where they can learn more about the App Accelerator program?
Yeah, so you can find me personally on Instagram at the Amanda Spann, Amanda Spann, that's Spann with 2 N's. And if you would like to join the App Accelerator, you can visit us at ihaveanappidea.net. Again, that's ihaveanappidea.net.
Thank you so much, Amanda. This was wonderful. And I can't wait to speak with you more again later.